is sticking to his guns.
That amendment should have been developed within 30 days.
Also tonight, government recovers military-grade weapons from private citizens, the ongoing government purge on illegally held firearms, and Interior CS Fred Matiang'i's straight-shooting message to their owners.
If you, by any chance, are holding a firearm illegally, there's going to be a moratorium. Now, we will not judge you in a court of law.
Plus, the big iconic white elephant government projects and their steep costs to the taxpayer.
So these projects are designed not to meet an economic benefit to the economy, but a procurement fraud project.
And also tonight,
Yataka ukweli ujulikane. Ujulikane juu mimi hata nikijaribu kujitetea juu mimi sina pesa ya kupeana.
another family may have benefited from the gift intended for her, but their meat is still her poison.
NTV Tonight with Mark Masai and Olive Burrows.
Welcome to the broadcast. Our sign language interpreter tonight is David Agondoa. Now, the National Assembly and the Central Bank of Kenya are embroiled in a push and pull over new regulations that limit the amounts to be withdrawn from one's account.
The CBK argues the passage of amendments to the Banking Act gave them express authority of coming up with the new regulations, but Parliament argues that the regulations should be brought back to Parliament for processing into law.
NTV's Kennedy Mureithi attended the heated session with the Finance Committee and has prepared this report.
Today's session of the National Assembly's Finance Committee was important for MPs who are keen on nailing the Central Bank of Kenya and the new regulations they have come up with to limit cash withdrawals and deposits, as well as question the source of money coming into one's account. A session of Parliament last week, Thursday, seemed to suggest that MPs were against the new regulations and they would want them reviewed. And it is with this background that the CBK officials, led by the governor, appeared in Parliament to explain why the regulations should not be reversed.
For us in Kenya, we remain vulnerable to risks from money laundering and the financing of terrorism. By virtue of our location, we know how we are located, the geography and the other, who are our neighbors and the oceans and things like that.
MPs backtracked on doing away with the regulations and instead asked that they be brought to Parliament to be turned into actual laws. However, CBK read mischief as this would give MPs an opportunity to alter the law and introduce what they wanted.
The majority of suspicious transactions are generally triggered by unusually large cash transactions.
The Banking Act Amendment of 2018 allows CBK to regulate under Section 33C. The said Section 33C says the central bank shall prescribe in regulations conditions on deposits or withdrawals by customers in banks and financial institutions. 2. The central bank shall, within 30 days of coming into force of this act, prescribe regulations setting out conditions for deposits and withdrawals by customers in banks and financial institutions in accordance with the Statutory Instruments Act. And 3, for avoidance of doubt, no other person shall purport to make regulations required under this section, and any existing guidelines or regulations prescribing conditions on deposits or withdrawals by customers shall cease to be operational within 14 days of the coming into force of the regulations made under this section. The CBK is, however, in a dilemma, as there is fear that Parliament will quickly reverse the guidelines they have come up with and leave Kenya exposed. The CBK was also accused of sponsoring activists to move to court to stall the whole process so that they could not bring forth the regulations to Parliament. The leader of majority has voiced opposition to the regulations, arguing that they curtail liquidity.
So, the moment, you curtail the circulation of cash, then you suffocate liquidity within even the banking sector.
The two institutions, that is the Central Bank of Kenya and the National Assembly, seem not to be trusting each other on this particular matter, as the National Assembly insists that these regulations that the CBK has passed should be brought before Parliament to be adopted into law. But the CBK seems to believe that the moment that they table these regulations will be the beginning of mutilating them. Kennedy Mureithi, NTV at National Assembly.
So why is there such a big fuss about this CBK alert form, or rather the need to validate or declare why you're depositing or withdrawing an amount more than 10,000 USD? And this we can work with a round figure of 1 million upwards. Now, initially, of course, it was introduced to control the issue of money laundering, as well as in this age that we live in, a lot has been happening in terms of funds exchanging different accounts in aiding terrorism. And of course, there was one of the suspects in court not too long ago. So if you were or are one of the 0.7% account holders within the banking sector that operates with 1 million shillings upwards, this is a kind of form that you would get when you go to a bank, to your respective bank, to ask or to deposit or withdraw more than 1 million shillings. So let's say I walk into a bank, to my bank on a Friday, and the Saturday following is my Rorashio, and I want to withdraw 1.5 million shillings, and this is what I will have to answer. Why is the large cash deposit or withdrawal necessary? Well, I'll probably write there, I need to get me a wife and I'm going for a Rorashio. And then the next question, why can't the cash deposit or withdrawal be done via electronic means? Well, you'd say that my in-laws would want to see the actual cash in hand. And you know how it plays out in a Rorashio or a dowry giving ceremony if you are not too privy with what Rorashio means. Where shall the funds be taken right from the bank's premises? Well, I'll be taking it straight to the family respective Ushago or upcountry home of my in-laws. What are the funds going to be used for? As I said there earlier, using my example, to pay for dowry. And the next set of questions that we would be getting, or we would have, would be who will be the direct or indirect beneficiaries of the funds. You have to put the name, you have to put the ID or passport information there, and I'll be putting there the in-laws information. Please provide the full identity of the beneficiary of the funds. There you go, a bit more names on that. And what is the source of the funds which is sought to be deposited or withdrawn? At this point, I might put in that it has been savings over time or has been harambe with friends and family who have come together to support a brother in getting a wife. The information provided above, this is the last section, the information provided above is correct and reflects a true account of the funds deposited, withdrawn to or from our account, and you sign there. And this is just to be able to track where you got the money and where it's going to, what the use will be put to. And normally, though, and my example probably wasn't too serious, but normally you would be withdrawing such an amount when you're paying for land or buying a car. And it actually does work as a sense of security, and you'll have some paper trail to go back to and say that I actually did alert the bank account, that the bank that I will be buying this piece of land or car. Olive, I'm not too sure if you'll be getting 1.5 for Rorashio, but yes, someone would have to declare that if indeed they go to withdraw ahead of the dowry giving ceremony.
Quite the illustration, Mark Masai. Now, some of them were launched with pomp and color. Others billed as projects that would create thousands of jobs and pump billions of shillings back into the economy. But almost 5 years down the line, some of these projects have come crumbling, others have stalled, while some are yet to start. NTV's Silas Apollo reports on the failed Jubilee projects and why some economists now think that the trend could see the taxpayer bear the brunt of debt that has yielded little or no results, and expenditure that has taken on the dimensions of vendor-driven projects.
Instead of 5 stadiums, we actually went for 9, just to make it good and to make it better.
This was in 2017 when President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto made promises that the Jubilee administration was in the process of completing 9 stadiums across the country. The stadiums were part of the campaign promises that the duo had made ahead of the elections in 2013 and even in 2017. But just like with many other projects, that promise is yet to be met, turning the much-hyped state-of-the-art stadiums into what critics of the government now term as white elephants. In some cases, construction sites for these projects have been abandoned by contractors, while in other cases, money has been paid for works that are yet to begin.
Our expenditures are not occasioned as a matter of priority. We are spending haphazardly without taking into account key priorities that once invested in will spearhead and accelerate the growth of the economy.
So these projects are designed not to meet an economic benefit to the economy, but are procurement fraud projects. So they are enterprises for procurement fraud.
Both Nyandemo and Watima are of the opinion that the government may have bitten more than it can chew. The result has been a corrupt system, sucking up taxpayers' funds with little to no regard for citizens.
These mega projects have been occasioned to act as cash cow projects, in which most of these government appointees are swimming in the taxpayers' money.
Besides the stadiums, the Jubilee government has also been on the spot over the failed Class 1 laptop project launched after the 2013 elections, and even the planned bus rapid transport system that was set to reorganize transport in the capital, Nairobi. The standard gauge railway has also been mired in controversy over poor returns, and the Galana Kulalo irrigation scheme at the coast is in jeopardy. A key pillar of the Jubilee second-term food security stands at risk.
We need to freeze most of these projects. Then we look at how can we audit projects that will bring economic benefit to the country. But we need to scale down most of the projects. In my opinion, even we don't have money for the Big Four agenda.
Some critics have in the past warned that the Big Four agenda may become another cash cow for the corrupt. Data from government indicates that the country currently spends over 1 trillion shillings to service foreign loans every year, a figure that could shoot higher in the coming months.
As the government races again its time to pay its debts, to remain in the good book of investors, and even deliver on its campaign promises, critics now argue that the burden will continue to be heavier on the citizens. Silas Apollo, NTV.
Speaking of the government big white lies, here is a good example. It's a bad example, but it's still a good example. It's most recent. It's virtually no surprise for residents of Aror in the county of Elgeyo Marakwet. Revelations of the questionable use of 21 billion shillings on the non-existent Aror Dam. They say the project sounded suspicious from the word go.
NTV's Lois Wangui visited Aror and tells of a project that encountered resistance among locals and which was forced upon them, leading to an almost ecstatic atmosphere when they learned that the Directorate of Criminal Investigations was investigating the expenditure of billions by KVDA over the non-existent Aror Dam and Water Project.
The empty Aror Dam project, according to the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, DCI, KVDA has spent 21 billion shillings here. Trees, shrubs, bushes, and natural water streams are visible. There is simply no sign of such expenditure. KVDA claims to have paid 21 billion shillings to CMC di Ravenna, an Italian firm contracted for the works. KVDA had offered monetary compensation for those who were to shift to make way for Aror Dam, but offered them 250,000 Kenyan shillings per acre of land. Residents negotiated for land-to-land compensation. KVDA obliged but did not honor any compensation.
Kwa hiyo vile wanasema ati kuna watu wamelipwa, hiyo na kata kabisa. Hakuna mtu amelipwa kwa hii project.
Hatutaki tena kabisa. Wacha ikome tangu leo, hatutaki hata mwanzo, hata hii mambo ya trilling huko. Wacha ibote tangu leo.
An initiative by residents to sabotage meetings and any works in the area was quickly extinguished by a visit by a high delegation of leaders who labeled them enemies of development.
So tulienda kwa mchango ya kanisa huko. So the vice president vile alitereza akasema wenye wanapiga miradi ya Aror Dam are the enemies of development. So tangu siku hiyo tukaona tukakuja kushikwa kupelekwa kotini.
Provincial administration officials arrested those perceived to be mobilizing this community against displacement and construction of Aror Dam. On the 18th of June 2018, locals clashed with administrators.
Kwanza 2016 wakati tuliresist project, tukasumbuliwa. Wengi wetu walikamatwa, hata mimi kwanza ndio niliwekwa ndani, na bibi yangu mwenye alikuwa mjamzito,
After the clash with the government, locals kept away, but construction of the dam still did not materialize.
Inaonekana tuchafurahia sababu wameingia shamba yetu kuja kufanyia makazi yao na kuna kitu ile yenye ambayo ametupatia.
Senior government officials from Treasury and KVDA are among those suspected of having embezzled the money and are currently under investigation by the DCI.
So every year we have less than $1 billion shillings taken to development. So you can imagine now 21 billion, that is county government for the next 21 years.
The Aror Dam project is the latest Jubilee government controversy and the DCI's latest foray into grand corruption in the country.
More revelations are emerging concerning the treacherous, deceptive and flamboyant lifestyles of President Uhuru Kenyatta's impersonators.
The fraudsters who recently conned Samir Africa chairman Naushad Merali 10 million shillings by pretending to be President Kenyatta are spending another night in police custody and will be formally charged on Wednesday. But who exactly are these suspects?
NTV's Seth Olale delves deeper into the profiles of the key suspects who've allegedly been implicated in numerous criminal activities.
Clients have not been mentioned in that paragraph.
Joseph Waswa, also popularly known as Joseph Lendrix Waswa, and who is a key suspect in the case, first made headlines in the year 2014. He was arrested and charged at the Bungoma High Court with murdering Mombasa University student Mitch Barasa Kibiti. The flamboyant youthful businessman had allegedly shot the university student at a bar in Kimilili town. Waswa, a key suspect in the murder case, was released on bond. He caused drama when he appeared in court for the main hearing of the case with a fleet of luxurious four-wheel drive vehicles accompanied by up to 10 bodyguards. This prompted officers attached to the flying squad unit to pounce on the group conducting searches for firearms which were not found. In December 2017, Waswa brought the village of Nzatani in Kitui County to a standstill when he arrived at his fiancee's home, Tabitha Maureen, with 4 choppers to pay dowry. The 2022 Bungoma senatorial aspirant was in the company of youthful politicians such as Embakasi East MP Babu Owino. Babu Owino says they were invited by a local MP to that ceremony. Waswa and his accomplices have been, to say the least, strategic. At one point, Waswa's co-accused Isaac Wejekeche, who identifies himself as an independent journalist, is seen in this picture greeting President Uhuru Kenyatta during the Jubilee campaigns. Little is known about the other 5 suspects, who include William Simiyu, David Lugana, Gilbert Kirunja and Anthony Wafula. Last week, police arrested Waswa and his 6 accomplices during an operation that led to the seizure of 4 vehicles, including a Toyota Land Cruiser, a Toyota Mark X, a Toyota Axio, and a Toyota Crown. They had allegedly conned Samia Africa boss Naushad Merali of 10 million shillings by pretending to be President Uhuru Kenyatta. The aspiring Bungoma politician has also been involved in numerous charity donations to his community, including construction of schools through his foundation. Police believe that the 7 suspects were aided by senior government officials as well as politicians. Investigations are ongoing. Seth Olale, NTV, Nairobi County.
To other developments in the day, some 300 firearms and 5,000 rounds of ammunition have been confiscated in the ongoing vetting of firearm holders in the country.
Interior CS Fred Matiang'i has warned those with illegally held guns to surrender them in the next 2 months or face prosecution.
The government hopes to seal the corruption loopholes at the licensing board and have a fully automated register of civilian gun owners by April. Leila Mohammed reports.
An assortment of rifles was on display at the pavilion at the CID training school Tuesday afternoon. Large guns ranging from semi-automatic, shotguns, hunting rifles and other sophisticated weapons, and over 5,000 rounds of ammunition. Their owners who held licenses for them were forced to give them up.
The law prescribes what class of firearms you can carry. Fortunately for you, today you came, you have seen the kind of firearms that these good people have collected. Some of them are specialized firearms that under the law are only supposed to be carried by KDF.
300 firearms and 5,000 rounds of ammunition in the hands of unlicensed owners were confiscated. The CS has extended a 2-month grace period to anyone with illegal or unregistered firearms to surrender them or face prosecution.
The most interesting thing, as you have seen yourselves, is the number of guns that we are confiscating and the ammunition that has been confiscated, over 5,000 since this exercise started, of individuals who are holding firearm licenses that are fake or that were obtained fraudulently.
Since mid-December, 3,500 individuals have been vetted and have been given new licenses. Matiang'i says criminals had been taking advantage of the loopholes in the former licensing board.
We do not have a proper record of even the genuine firearm holders. That's why we are doing this. At the end of this exercise, when it's done, by the end of April, when we have done the whole country, we will have an electronic record.
The ministry will announce the dates when those living outside Nairobi should be vetted. Those within the capital have until the 7th of March to do so. Dealers in firearms and those who wish to drive armored vehicles are also required to get a license from the board.
Records from the previous board show that about 9,000 Kenyans owned guns in this country. But with the revelation by the CS that quite a number of those documents were fake, the ministry now says it wants to clean up the sector to ensure that all guns in civilian hands are legitimate. Lina Mohammed, NTV, Nairobi.
Two key suspects in the murder of businesswoman Mary Wamboi's death will face charges next Monday.
Judy Wagoi, mistress to Mary Wamboi's husband, Joseph Kori, and car hire dealer, Michael Githai, were arraigned today at the Kiambu High Court, where they were expected to answer to charges of murdering businesswoman Mary Wamboi.
The plea has, however, been pushed to next Monday because the late Wangoi's lawyer, Cliff Ombeta, was not available today. Mary Wamboi was killed in Wangoi's house on the 26th of last month.
A post-mortem examination found that she had suffered 9 lethal blows to her head. Her body was found in a dam in Juja, Kiambu County. Judy Wagoi remains the main suspect in the murder, with Michael Githai believed to have helped her transport and dispose of the body using his taxi.
Kori was released from police custody on the night of February 21st after sources say investigations by homicide detectives at the Directorate of Criminal Investigations failed to link him to the murder.
From the court, we take another break, first break actually, here on NTV Tonight. We'll be back with more. Stay with us.
I told you to kick it more to the left.
Welcome back. The house a Nakuru woman rejected as a gift from the president was built by well-wishers and not the head of state. Well, that would have been something if it was the head of state who built it. But the bigger story is here. The house has since been transferred to another family, but the woman at the heart of the storm still maintains that she was promised a home and a job.
But government officials on the ground say Damaris Wambui has proved difficult with every gesture they have extended towards her. NTV's Bridget Ngana spoke with Damaris and files this report.
48 hours since a new owner moved into the house Damaris Wambui had rejected, we trace her to this farm. This is where she earns a living as a laborer. Damaris says she harbors no bitterness towards the family that now occupies the house she had declined.
Lakini mimi maneno ya nyumba, mimi sikusikia vibaya. Sababu hakuna mtu ameshawahi kukuja hapa kwangu, akanishika mkono akaniambia hii ndio nyumba.
According to the Rift Valley Regional Commissioner who presided over the handover ceremony on Sunday, their intention to build a home for Ngaroya's family was an afterthought of the officials who had been instructed to take up his case owing to the poor living conditions they had found Ngaroya in. But Damaris insists that her gift of a home was from the president's mouth.
It was not the president who came up with the extended gift. In any case, any benefactor who comes after, it borrows from, this started from what the president had promised. So that is the linkage there.
Mimi ningetaka ukweli ujulikane. Ujulikane juu mimi hata nikijaribu kujitetea juu mimi sina pesa ya kupeana, hakuna mtu atasikiliza, lakini nasimama na Mwenyezi Mungu. Hata ni Mwenyezi Mungu alikuwa hapo wakati tulikuwa State House. Na hii mambo yote inaongewa, hakuna mtu anajua. Ni Mungu tu anajua, mimi na Wajohi na Raisi na Dennis.
Since NTV broke the story last week, the State House spokesperson confirmed that intentions to settle Ngaroya's family were well on course. The land on which the contested house was built is said to have cost more than 600,000 shillings, the building about 1 million shillings. The deed to the land has not yet been transferred, but the government officials on the ground say they welcome any well-wisher who might be willing to provide a home to Ngaroya's family.
We don't personalize such issues. So as at now, if any benefactor comes specifically targeting the boy, we will still facilitate and mobilize to ensure that we assist.
Dennis alifurahisha Raisi. Na vile Dennis alifurahisha Raisi, na Raisi akampenda. Sasa ndio hii maneno yote inaonekana kwa sababu kuna watu sijui wanataka Dennis ahangaike na wanafurahia kuona sisi tukiteseka. Sasa ndio wanaweka maneno nyingi hata kutuharibia.
Damaris says she's only doing what any mother would do, and that is protect the interests of her child. She says she is not disturbed by the ongoings of the giving of the house to somebody else who she believes is even more deserving than her. She only hopes that the person who had the goodwill to educate her son, who is the president, will still continue holding Dennis Ngaroya's hand. Bridget Ngana, NTV, Nakuru.
Female legislators are now calling on the leader of government business in the National Assembly to rally members of parliament to pass the 2/3 gender bill when it is brought to the floor of the House for a vote tomorrow.
A bill sponsored by Majority Leader in the National Assembly seeks to lay out the modalities of meeting the constitutional threshold by allowing parties to top up the numbers should the ballot box fail to balance the equation. NTV's Brenda Wanga reports.
For the fourth time, the National Assembly will be attempting to legislate the modalities of actualizing the 2/3 gender rule as stipulated in the Constitution. This time round, a bill sponsored by the government seeks to lay out the mechanisms of ensuring that the House has the requisite number of each gender.
Kenyans, young and old, and especially the women, are really looking forward to attaining this principle, as you know.
The women leaders who say they have been lobbying members in the National Assembly as well as party leaders to get their members to back the bill are now looking up to the leader of majority in parliament to ensure that the vote is a success this time round.
An executive bill, the leader of majority is the mover of government bills.
The Constitution, Article 21, places the responsibility on the state.
We are all aware that he has been able to achieve much by mobilizing. Now that it's a government bill that has been brought by the government, and he's a majority leader and the leader of the government business.
The provision of the 2/3 gender representation has not been realized 8 years after the promulgation of the Constitution, largely because the same Constitution had not spelled out the clear route to its implementation.
Their way into the Senate.
The Supreme Court in 2012 had, in an advisory opinion, stated that the rule be implemented progressively by 2015.
I direct that the business appearing as under number 10.
Attempts by Parliament to pass the appropriate bills to effect the rules have almost always been frustrated by quorum hitches.
We will risk losing the bill.
Last year, the Duale-sponsored bill faced a similar fate, leading to a deferment of the vote. It is this bill that seeks to have parties top up numbers after elections to meet the 2/3 gender rule that will be on the floor of Parliament tomorrow. Currently, the National Assembly has 75 women MPs, while the Senate has 3 elected women from 47 counties, while 18 are nominated. Brenda Wanga, NTV.
About to take a break, but just before that, something to look forward to tomorrow. The 3rd senior-most man in the Vatican was today found guilty of molesting 2 choir boys and now faces up to 25 years in jail.
Cardinal George Pell, one of Pope Francis's closest advisors, becomes the most senior Catholic cleric ever convicted of child sex crimes.
A wide-ranging suppression order from the presiding judge had prevented the media from reporting even the existence of court proceedings and the ensuing trial since May. But now the cat is finally out of the bag.
The Daily Nation tomorrow examines Cardinal Pell's immoral acts within the sphere of the Church and asks this cardinal question: how will the Catholic Church regain its glory?
Something else you get in your Daily Nation tomorrow, the latest from the multi-billion shilling dams scandal, I should say, just in case you think I'm cussing, that is sinking the high and mighty, and why the investigations have come too close for comfort for some senior officials in government. Make sure you get your copy.
As Mark said, time now for a break. Julian's Amboko will be back with the business news.
for your daily look at the world of business. Welcome, I am Julian Amboko. The proposal to hand over operations of the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport to Kenya Airways continues to draw more opposition from the Parliament, with yet another committee of the House querying the nature of the deal and its ultimate objectives. Victor Kiprop with the details.
Barely 20 minutes into their meeting with the committee, Kenya Airways, Kenya Airports Authority and the Transport Ministry officials were chased out of the meeting by their host, who had a number of demands.
In line with the minister coming here, whether this hour or next hour or in the afternoon, before we do that, KQ should submit the proposal they sent to KAA here. That is the beginning of business today. We will reconvene 10 minutes to 12. And by that time, the Cabinet Secretary, CS, should be here. Agreed, honorable members? Yes. Ruling has been made, so the meeting adjourned.
In their proposal tabled more than 1 hour later, Kenya Airways argues that the proposed takeover of Kenya's airport is necessary in order to enable both the carrier and the airport to compete with its peers, including Ethiopian Airlines, who are currently eating into KQ's market share using a similar business model.
From the peers, we have heard from KQ and we have heard from KAA. Yes. We have the report here. Yes. We can go read the report. Then once we are now prepared, we can be able to raise this. It will serve us well. Yes. Once we start now to contribute here, we are going to dilute.
We support chair.
After finally receiving the much-awaited copy of the proposal, the committee now takes a 2-week retreat to go through the document, after which it will decide on its next course of action. Victor Kiprop, NTV Business, Nairobi.
And away from aviation, the tale of how Devin Gare alias Gakuyo dashed the dreams of many Kenyans by embezzling billions of their savings at Ekeza Sacco has shocked the nation. Lillian Kiari looks into how Gare rose to head the Cooperative with nearly 80,000 members, a real estate with branches across the country, and networks that made him even seek the gubernatorial seat of Kenya's third richest county in 2017.
He's a man who has clearly angered thousands.
Na mtu yeyote mwenye taona Gakuyo akipita mahali, asiogope kumuita mwizi, na akiweza kumuoga na mawe, anaweza muoga na mawe.
With reports that Ngari misappropriated over 1 billion shillings of members' money to finance his lifestyle, relocating from a simple house in Thika to the leafy suburbs of Nyari, perhaps this self-description is well befitting.
Mimi ni mbaya kuliko Waitito.
But who is this man? In 1998, a young Gary who was then a struggling hawker in Mombasa packed his bags and left the scorching city, frustrated by the inability to make ends meet.
Listen to this.
He was to later emerge, born again, preaching prosperity gospel and with a real estate company that promised to change the fortunes of Kenyans. With his customers comprising of middle-income Kenyans struggling to make ends meet, Gakuyo rode on the wave of religion to bait them, even using the same faith to keep them in his corner when suspicion on his operation started to grow.
I am a man of Korah, man of truth.
But behind the scenes, Gakuyo transferred money received from Ekeza Sacco to Gakuyo Real Estate to finance his personal projects. One of them to vie for the Kiambu County gubernatorial seat, where he later dropped his bid to support Governor Waitito after queries about his theological doctorate emerged.
You have been deregistered from the program.
Queries which he dismissed by simply saying,
Agaria Gakuyo, Agaria Ekeza, uone masomo.
The first rise of the society saw former Kiambu Governor William Kabogo poke questions.
Usiweke pesa yako kwa Ekeza, unaweka pesa yako ndani ya shimo.
But his warnings were dismissed as nuances from political rivalry, making a rift dubbed United for Kiambu more popular.
Kama mimi nilikuwa nimesave more than 200 and something thousand. Nimekuwa nikienda huko mimi ni hasara.
Despite the probe by the Commission of Cooperatives finding him guilty of fleecing billions of shillings in the Sacco, Gakuyo is still roaming freely and is yet to face any criminal charges. Lillian Kiarie, NTV.
And from the fraudulent circle, let's move to counterfeit cell phones. Fake phones worth an estimated 3 million shillings have been confiscated in some shops along Nairobi's Tom Mboya Street by officials of the multi-agency team fighting illicit trade. Shopkeepers selling the fake phones were caught unaware in the sting operation, with some of them getting arrested for selling the illegal handsets. Alex Mwangi with the details.
With the same zeal that the multi-agency government task force is seeking to fight illicit trade in the country, unscrupulous traders are devising ways of beating the system. Here is the latest crooked method being used to sell fake phones to unsuspecting Kenyans.
These counterfeit phones bear different names at the point of manufacture and entry, but it's only at the retail level when it's a fully counterfeited product. At the end of the supply chain, that is at the retail level, when now these other brand names are removed, or they take Samsung stickers and stick on top of those other brands, then giving the phone the appearance of a Samsung phone and a back cover and a front screen that bears the Samsung logo.
On getting wind of the sting operation, some traders shut their shops temporarily in a bid to avoid being caught. These shops next to Drops restaurant at the junction of Moi Avenue and Kenyatta Avenue and right next to Montlane Street were shut during the raid, but opened barely an hour later.
A Samsung phone costing 100,000 is being offered for sale here at 15,000. Of course, this person has not paid the appropriate tax to the government. So the government is losing billions of shillings in tax evasion in all this scam.
Such is the level of sophistication of counterfeits that they are now beginning to render the International Mobile Equipment Identity Number, popularly known as the IMEI number, redundant.
They have beaten the issue of the IMEI number. Initially, we used to tell customers to take the IMEI numbers, but currently, the IMEI number given there has already been activated in the system. So you can see the level at which counterfeiting has gone. Due to the digital evolvement, they can crack codes and get all these things.
Some of the traders in the illicit goods were apprehended and taken to record statements at the Central Police Station following the targeted raid. Alex Mwangi, NTV.
And elsewhere, Rebecca Mbithi has been appointed to the position of Chief Executive Officer at Family Bank, replacing David Thuku, who resigned in September 2018. Mbithi, who presently serves as the company secretary and director, faces the challenge of sustaining the bank on a profitable path, a position that was resumed in 2018 after a 1 billion shilling loss reported in the 12 months that ended in December 2017. Mbithi's appointment comes against the backdrop of consolidation in the banking sector as lenders look to cushion themselves against the adverse effects of the cap on lending rates. Family Bank reported a net profit of 188 million shillings in the 9 months ending September 2018. Rebecca Mbithi's appointment is subject to approval by the Central Bank of Kenya. And that's it for the business news tonight, and do enjoy the rest of your viewing.
made their case before the National Assembly Budget and Appropriation Committee as the government cites limited resources.
Chair Kimani Ichung'wah says the agencies will have to find ways to operate within allocated budgets amid concerns that the funding shortfalls may affect their operations, more so for the institutions tasked with fighting graft.
Out of the first group of government agencies that presented their budget policy statements before the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee of the National Assembly last week, 4 of them requested an additional 12.3 billion shillings in their budgets. The Judiciary and the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission that anchor the war on graft have requested additional funding amounting to 8.4 billion shillings to help them deliver on their mandate. But these extra resources they seek may be hard to come by. Chair of the National Assembly's Budget Committee, Kimani Ichung'wah, says the agencies may just have to live within their means and exercise prudence in the management of limited resources.
You must understand that resources are always limited, but our needs are forever unlimited. So what we ask all MDAs in government is to be able to rationalize and be able to prioritize what are priorities within their working programs. You don't have to do everything within one financial year.
EACC had asked for 6.1 billion shillings, but were allocated 2.9 billion shillings. The Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions wanted an extra 700 million shillings. These agencies driving the war on graft had raised concern that limited funding will derail the war on graft.
Governance and law and justice sector is one of the sectors in this country that we have ensured that we have put enough, not really enough, adequate resources to be able to support the fight against corruption.
The Office of the Attorney General and the Department of Justice had asked for an additional funding of 7.4 billion shillings. All the agencies had complained of poor staff remuneration, inadequate office space, and operating on a tight budget.
Challenge is on particular agencies to be also to be able to rationalize their staffing needs, be able to know what areas do you need more staff and which people do you need to pay better than others to be able to retain good talent. So those are administrative challenges within MDAs and they have to be able to deal with them.
IEBC had also asked for 3.9 billion shillings to settle its pending bills. Vincent Odur, NTV.
Well, besides just living within our means, we should perhaps try using the allocated resources for the intended purposes. Probably wouldn't be asking for more funding in the first place. Let's take another break. Sports is up next with What Are They Kill? Stay with us.
over Tusker in Wednesday's solitary KPL match slated for the Kasarani Stadium. This as a win for Robert Matano's Charges, which see the Brewers climb up a slot to third on the log. Kogalo will be hoping to replicate the continental form that saw them edge Algerian side N.A. Hussein Dey 2-0 on Sunday. Meanwhile, Bandari FC winger Abdallah Hassan has been named the SportPesa LG January Player of the Month, and Hassan beat Mathare's Cliff Nyakea and Kakamega Homeboys captain Alan Wanga to bag the award and earn 100,000 shillings courtesy of SportPesa, a personalized trophy and a 49-inch TV courtesy of LG Electronics. Additionally, his team got 100,000 shillings.
Kama kutoka Bandari nende nchi nyingine si hapa hapa. Mwaka huu tumefanya, kuna mbinu tumeambiwa na sponsor wetu, tukishinda title tapelekwa Europe wiki moja. Ndio maana tutafanya bidii ndio tubebe hiyo title.
Congratulations to him. And teams are playing in the FKF Nairobi County Branch Leagues, which is the fourth tier of football in the country, have been boosted with a 4 million shilling sponsorship by Nairobi women representative Esther Passaris. The sponsorship, which was from the National Government Affirmative Action Fund, was in the form of participation fees worth 1.6 million shillings, as well as sports equipment for selected clubs worth 3 million shillings. The fund seeks to address the plight of vulnerable groups through enhanced access to financial facilities and also provides an avenue for promotion of enterprise and value addition. Present at the function held at the Football Kenya Federation Goal Project headquarters was FKF President Nick Mwendwa.
Nairobi is a big county, 17 constituencies. I felt that I didn't want to just hold a tournament and give out trophies. I wanted to understand football right from the grassroots.
And I'm excited as a president because for the first time in Kenyan football, we are bridging the gap between ourselves and politics.
To mark its 20th edition, the Lewa Marathon that is sponsored by Safaricom seeks to raise 100 million shillings, which is 20 times the amount that was raised in the first edition held in the year 2000. The Lewa Marathon, to be held on Saturday 29th June, will have 3 categories: the 5-kilometer children's fund race for children aged between 10 and 17 years, the 21-kilometer half marathon, which will include team races, and the 42-kilometer full marathon. Since inception, the annual marathon has raised over 750 million shillings, which has gone into wildlife conservation, construction and equipping of schools, provision of equipment at health facilities, and engaging in sustainable harvest and use of water. Registration opens tomorrow and it shall be online on www.safaricom-marathon.co.ke.
Wildlife is all about and what value and benefit wildlife can have for Kenyans.
Niaje, want to invest in a biashara that will take your hustle to the...
At close distance following the redrawing of the course layout to help ease spectator access. Kenya's premier golf tournament, which will tee off on March 14th, will be a European tour event. The 4-day golfing extravaganza will see elite golfers, led by the Ryder Cup winner, walk the greens of the Par 72 Current Country Club course. Kenya will be represented by a team of 6 amateurs and 12 professionals, and 9 of whom were picked from the recently concluded inaugural Safari Tour Golf Series. Meanwhile, the Coca-Cola system in Kenya, through its water brand Keringate, has sponsored the tournament.
We have changed the layout of the course primarily to ensure that we will provide spectator access to the first tee off so people can see them starting, and also to provide spectator access to the finishing hole. So the course is going to be played in reverse.
Across the borders, and our focus will be on the relegation battles in the English Premier League as 7 clubs in the bottom half of the table are in action tonight. Leicester assistant coaches will be in charge for the Foxes game against Brighton. This follows the sacking of immediate former...
Watching. Thank you to David Agondoa for the sign language interpretation. Ken Mijungu is doing this to us because it's time for Sidebar with Kenneth Mijungu and his guest. You want to tell us who it is? Actually, they're talking about policing the society. Whose job is it, if any?
To police the society. And his guests are Ezekiel Mutua, who's the CEO of the Kenya Film Classification Board, Eric Gitari, who's an SJD candidate of the Harvard Law School, Brenda Wamboi, who's host and executive producer of the Otherwise podcast, and Bishop Dr. David Oginde of Sitam.
Interesting one coming ahead, so let's get out of here.